The infamous topic of habits. There's a statement that I love that I heard. It says, that our life changes when our habits change. And I don't think it could be more true. So we're going to try to talk about forming successful habits tonight. We're going to talk about just the struggles, but also giving you definitely some of the tools that can maybe start moving you forward. So we're going to try to address why habits matter, when it comes to pain or stress or healing. We're going to make sure that we talk about how to create those habits that will actually stick, and what are some of the tools that you can use to make those healthy habits easier. So, again, our lives change if our habits change. If we want a healthy, longer life, if we want more vitality and to be able to do things as we get older, then habits are a big deal. Let's talk about something really simple. Think about this, because most people, as you age, you stop playing. To some degree, you stop playing like a kid. As a kid, you would, if you got on the jungle gym or the play gym, you would probably try to balance on one foot on the top rung for just being silly, but you'd challenge yourself. You'd run over things that were uncomfortable. You would be on the edge of the curb just challenging your balance. You would play, but challenging your body to see its limits. As we get older, that brain continues to say, hey, just conserve, just be careful. You don't want to hurt yourself. And so we stop, our ability to do things slowly diminishes, not just because of age, but because we stop playing and stop trying. So balance is one of the biggest things. We do a whole balance workshop, but just the habits of trying to get on one leg every day and challenge your balance could save your life in a sense. And what do I mean by that? Well, when you hit 60, and if you have a fall after 60, your life expectancy goes down just from the fall. Even if you stood right back up, a fall has such ramifications that as you get older, it can affect so many things. You could break a bone. You could maybe have an injury. You could then start to have to have a surgery, which can lead to more complications. So everything that kind of is connected with just playing and moving can affect your health. What's a habit we need to do? We need to challenge our balance every day. Okay. So how do your habits affect your health? Well, every habit you have, from brushing your teeth to eating the right foods. So the more that we're sedentary affects everything. So how do we start changing some of these things? A really big deal. And we don't change them all at once. So hopefully that's part of this. It's not about motivation. It's not just about motivation. I would tell you this, though. We would hope that you decide to make changes, not because you're desperate, but because you're inspired. Because those are the only two reasons people really make big change. Big changes only happen either because of desperation or inspiration. If you have the right little bits of motivation throughout the day and you're doing things, you can be at a really good level without having to feel in either extreme. But most of the time, people make most changes reactively because of desperation. And hopefully you guys are all here and thinking holistically because we want to try to be more preventative in nature than we want to be reactive, right? But motivation isn't the only thing. In psychology, a habit is a behavior that becomes more automatic because it's repeated in a consistent context. So simply, it's about creating repeatable patterns. So if we can have enough repeating of the same pattern, it will become a habit. It will start to cue or trigger a certain behavior because of the repetition. In the same context, it becomes more automatic because of these cues or triggers. So repetition can be one of the very first and simplest things you can do. Repetition. Number one, why do we get adjusted so often? Because we want to change your body's old patterns, your old habits, and we need to cue it into a new behavior. You might hear like a timing issue. You'll say, well, how long does it take to change a habit? Well, 21 days is sometimes what a lot of people will say, but there's no magic number for people. There's huge variation person to person. Some people might be 2 days, some people might be 2 years. It can take a while. The habit formations are going to depend on a number of things, as you see on the screen here, but consistency and repetition are huge. So you could develop a new habit even with not a lot of repetition or consistency, but at least you're consistent over a long time. Maybe it's not as repetitive every week, but something done for a year is likely to create a pattern, even if it's done once a week. But vice versa can be the other way. You might not do it very long, but if you did it every single day, you might form that habit very quickly. So those things are just interchangeable, and it definitely would depend on the habit you're trying to move. Getting habits to stick, it definitely can take time. Small wins are huge. It's just like, if you want to drink more water, you're going on a short walk, this is going to increase dopamine, which basically strengthens positive habits. The more dopamine we can produce over time, the bigger small wins we get. We need small wins or the body will not continue habits. We need to see small wins we need to see some feedback from our bodies that these habits are making changes. And there's definitely that point, where you need to, your body wants to see it. You haven't seen it yet, but you know that it is something. And that's sticking with it just past that point is what makes the habit. That's what makes the changes. But there's always there's that place where you could just leave it. You haven't seen the changes yet, but just that little bit more. It's your body's way of challenging you to get uncomfortable. That's the key. So there's a couple of tools we'll use. Stacking is a huge one. I like to use stacking on so many habits. I usually always talk about that with the balance because I brought that up. I'll talk about that. I say, hey, every time you go to brush your teeth, go on one leg. You can hold, but you're not changing. You're not changing any more time. But as brush your teeth for 2 minutes. That means you can do 30 seconds on each leg 2 times. If you have one of those fancy toothbrushes that will time, you'll know how long you did it. And you'll know to switch from one quadrant to the other, right? 4 beeps. So stacking is humongous. You could use this in so many ways. And this is how you can start to have those triggers or repeated patterns. If every time, you go down to get a cup of coffee every morning, you'd stack that with writing your, journaling maybe, or having some quiet meditation, or maybe it's some other habits that you need to stack with your morning routine. But when you do this, you'll do this. They just go together. That's called stacking. Stacking is a wonderful way of helping. Tracking is the next. What is measured changes. It's a known universal law. If it's measured, it changes. If you're measuring your weight every single day, it will change. Depending on what you're trying to change, it will probably change. Victoria, are you there? Could you explain batching? Because I'm not sure I know. I didn't read the book fully.
So batching is basically keeping it consistent. So it's scheduling them in kind of chunks. So like when I was consistent with my exercise, I knew I was doing Zumba every Monday and Thursday. I was batching it together, and I would leave work, go to the Y, do Zumba, go home. That's batch. Keeping it consistent. I knew every Monday and Thursday, that's what I was doing.
So it's scheduling more than okay. Thank you. And a lot of this is not just Victoria made these up, but the book is from Atomic Habits. And this is the book we reference you to kind of get more depth into some of this stuff. James Clear's great. He gives a lot of free emails out and stuff too if you sign up for his site. But Atomic Habits talks about these 3 things a lot. So it's kind of like stacking, but batching is kind of putting that in rhythm on a scheduled rhythm. It's Monday. What do I do? It's Tuesday. What do I do, right? And we all kind of do that in some way, but use that to your favor. Definitely use that to your favor. This is an interesting fact. It has nothing to do with this probably fully, but kind of does. It actually does. I found out that if you asked and polled a group of people, that 80% of the people would say that they would like to write a book. 80% of the people would actually like to write a book, which is a lot. Right? But only 1% of the people, that 80%, write a book. And only 15% even start doing the book. So when it comes to the habits, what's it take to write a book? Probably some pretty good consistency and habit, right? Because it easily could be, I could see myself getting washed away with other things. Especially if you just said, I think I'm going to write a book. Interestingly enough, if every day, 1%, you need 1% better, meaning like you wrote one more word, you eventually have a book done. Because 1% better every day is going to actually change a habit. 1%. That means that you're nearly 37 times better after 1 year. Just 1% better every day. Every day, just 1%. You think about that walking or something, if you did a mile and they just did 1% more, you would get to 37 miles. It's wild. It's wild, right? After 1 year. So stacking, batching, and tracking, huge. Again, we want things to be simple. They have to be somewhat small and achievable because I think the brain will be overwhelmed. If it's too much, we just shut down. So you could say, well, I want to start exercising. Maybe 5 squats before lunch, right? 1% better. Maybe it's just a minute of neck stretches while you're doing your coffee, right? We're stacking those up. Again, we're working with batching, with stacking. These things, or even just little examples, are saying, I do this because of this, these days or these times. And they're things that could be easily done. And if you like them, you can add to them, right? Like when I was trying to do my morning routine, especially when my kids were young, I think they knew that the only time to be with dad was because early in the morning, because that's when he's up and he's alone. So I'm going to get up earlier than he does. I'll just keep getting up. Dad gets up at 4, I'll get up at 3:30. That's what happens with kids. So when I coach other chiropractors, so they have young kids or they're trying, any patients in here have young kids, total grace in trying to make habits happen. You're trying to exercise early in the morning, good luck. I hope it happens, but it's tough. So I couldn't imagine that someday that I'd almost do an hour and a half or 2 hours of a morning routine, that is kind of uninterrupted and I have a plan. Then I, get up early to do it. But when at that point, I would have never imagined that was possible, right? It would have been if someone said, well, you need to do an hour and a half of work in the morning. You're going to have to read, you have to meditate, you have to exercise. And I would never imagine like do that. But every day, every time I'd probably stack little things. I could start to add a little bit as I got older and things. So, I could then start to do meditations for 30 minutes where a minute seemed like torture, but it took time, and so you have to start small with little things that you can do, and also just making it happen, I guess. What I would say is one of the other tools of habits is that you have to kind of have a non-negotiable that you're going to do it, and that done is better than perfect. Done is definitely better than perfect, because you could say, well, I told myself I'm going to walk 10 miles today, but the weather, there's something, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to walk down the block and back. I walked. Done is better than perfect. You told your body, we don't take off days. We don't stop this routine. We get out there and we do it no matter what's happened. If the morning got kerfuffled and you knew, well, I do my balancing with my toothbrush, well, I can do it in the evening toothbrush. Hey, good things. You're doing it twice a day. But you don't quit it. There's some way that you say, I'm going to make that happen, because things will definitely always get in our way. And it's so sad that the smallest deviation, the smallest, challenge to our day can throw us off in a way that we just can't do any. It's like all our habits are gone. I mean, today our internet wasn't here. And we've already actually experienced this. So we even had a plan, but I didn't do what I was supposed to before the day started. I was already kind of kerfuffled, even though there really was nothing different to do other than focus on the more important things and get done what I knew I needed to. I let just the fact that it wasn't the normal routine throw off my routine. And that kind of trickles down. So what do you tell? If you can tell your brain and your body, listen, we might get thrown off, but we don't quit. That there is a non-negotiable that this happens. If, I need to be eating this thing or these ways, I don't stop doing that. If something gets in my way, I reset, I do it again the right way. Those are just huge things. But those things, when you're thinking that way, even if you've reached a really good start, is not a small start, it's a big place where you're at. Don't let your body get too many days in a row without what you're used to, without doing something. Because it seems like they said timing, 21 days, 21 years, whatever it takes. And the science of quitting a habit is very solid. It's real simple. It takes a little bit of a shift of something in life. And I think without a week, probably 2, of some routine of that, you probably lost it. I mean, they show you'll lose muscle in about 2 weeks. If we're working out, you'll probably lose some muscle. All right. So as sad as it is, so easy to lose one, hard to get into those good ones, but you can do them. You just got to start small. This is just the big slide on the stacking, scheduling it out. We try to help. You haven't noticed when you sign up for a plan in our office, we try to help you with some of these things, right? We go, that's your day and that's your time. We're going to stack them, and we're going to stack habits, hopefully, and we're going to track them. We say, hey, you want to come to the workshops? You want to actually learn more? Bring yourself to Get Adjusted on Tuesday, and then you're not making an extra trip, right? So we use these tools. So this is kind of our call here. Just for 7 days, what I want you to try to do is to pick that one habit, pick that something simple that you're going to practice for 7 days. Again, it's non-negotiable. It's the next 7 days you're going to do it. Pair it with a cue, something that gets you, that will remind you that you're going to do this. Make that plan, track it, batch it, and stack it if you can. Track it, batch it, stack it. Those are the things. 7 days in a row, and just see what you notice. See what happens. See what sticks. You might be very, very surprised with that. Big take home tonight. There could be a million things on your mind, and what my homework on the way home or when you get home is to maybe write down a kind of as a brain dump if you want. You could write down the things that you'd like to change, your habits you want to track. Then what you all need to do is, if you can, hopefully don't write too many, but if you do, you do. I want you to kind of number them 1, 2, 3, and then take all the ones and then pick the one out of the ones. Okay. So you can write down a bunch of stuff. You could say, well, how important is this one to me? Is it a 1 or 2 or a 3? 3 being like important, but not as important as the ones, right? But then that will give you a way to narrow down so you can pick one, right? So once you've got your ones, then you're going to have to pick one, which may be hard. But I would say you try to do that tonight before you go to bed. Write down a couple habits. Maybe it's a lot. Maybe it's very few. Maybe it's real simple. You got the one, great. But if there's things on here, just try to write it down. Try to have a couple so you can narrow it down. Because I think what that does in your brain is you already made a choice. If you have one, you've kind of just either been, I feel like you might really know it, but maybe some other people or society's telling you these things, but you really believe that's the one. Have you discerned that that's the one? So I want you to kind of write things down that you think maybe would be good, and then pick the one that you can start doing for 7 days. And then maybe, the next day you say, okay, here's it is. Maybe it takes you 7 days even to get it started for 7 days, but you can start to then plan, how do I stack it? How do I track it? How do I batch it, right? But each day in the next week, you're going to do something toward it, and then maybe you have 7 days of doing it. Because planning, is key. It is just key. If you can break yourself a little time, that's key. So if we fail to plan, we plan to fail, right? So hopefully it helps. Share this with people, that are around you, because if other people around you are doing things in this way, you're more motivated to do them. Thank you for being here. Bye, everybody.